Alzheimer's.
And what is your name? Your full name?
Bertha Irene Robb Munyon.
Okay. And how old are you, Mrs. Robb Munyon?
I'm 74 years old.
And you are the mother of some wonderful children. What
Oh,
are their
well, I'd
names?
say they're kind of wonderful. I don't know, but I had 4 nice children. Nice children. Well, geez. The oldest one was Marvin Dale. He was born in he was born in Des Moines, Iowa, June the 1st, 1941.
At a hospital?
No. At home.
On a kitchen table?
No, at home in bed at Homer and Leela's in 4 Mile in Des Moines. He was a preemie. He was only 7 months old. And I started, I went to the bathroom, my water broke, I went out the old outside toilet.
Louder.
Went to the old outside toilet, and I knew what was happening, and I wouldn't wake your dad up. I let him sleep till I started having pains, and I woke him up. He got all excited, and he ran up to the neighbors, opened the door and walked in and said, I want to use your telephone, my wife's having a baby. Called the doctor, and he came down and said I wasn't having anything but just gas. And that was the cutest little fart you ever saw in your life. He told me to take Epsom salts, and I took Epsom salts, and boy, I'll tell you, it was awful. He was out in the golf course. He was out in the golf course, and he says, I'll be back about a little later on. About 12 o'clock he came, and I'll tell you, by 1 o'clock I had Marvin. Oh, he was an ugly little thing.
How big was
He
he?
didn't weigh 4 pounds. He was a little tiny bitty thing.
Did he have an incubator?
No. His incubator was a blanket folded, his receiving blanket, another blanket, and a big bed blanket, double blanket folded 4 times. He was all wrapped up in that with a hot water bottle, and and he was laying up next to me. That was his incubator.
I think he did pretty good though.
Of course, at that time he was dead 10 days before he got up. And then that was when we lived in Homer and Leela's. And Homer said, oh, that kid's not pretty. He's got his fingernails and toenails, but you know what he's talking about. And he said, oh, you should never bought that layette, because that kid's never going to live. Well, boy, did we fool him. Here he's a big fat... I didn't mean that, Marvin. I'm sorry. I did not mean that. I meant a big strapping young man. I meant to say. I'm sorry.
I thought you were talking about Homer.
I didn't mean that, Marvin. I'm sorry. You didn't mean it in that sense, Marvin.
No, I didn't. Because he is the favorite, right?
That's right.
I knew it.
Oh, yeah.
And who am I? Okay, who was your second?
Then I had a year and 6 months later, here came Carrie. Well, first your dad went into service in December the 19th, 1940. He was inducted into service. And I had Terry in January the 4th, 1941.
I thought he was born the 6th.
Excuse me.
5th, 1941. 5th, born in 1941.
5th or the 6th?
Dad went to service in 41, didn't he?
Yeah,
Well, I was
he's
born-
married. We've married in 40. Yeah, Terry's born 42.
But with
43.
3.
January the 6th, wasn't it?
Terry was born. Martin was born 41. Terry was born January the 6th. 6th, is it?
Isn't it?
Okay, 1943. I don't know either. And I had him on the table in my friend's kitchen, and I stayed there for a couple of days, and then I went over to Ada's, and I stayed there. And Dad came down one time to see me, and he had to sleep with me. And I was in bed with that baby here. He slept with me. But then he stayed one day and then went home.
Where was Terry born at home?
He was born on I can't remember the name of the street now. They're in Des Moines.
He was born in Des Moines also?
Yeah, I was staying with Helen and Vern Hayes. And when I went into labor and I had him on they put a table out in the middle of the floor and that's where I had him. Oh, let's see, then we went to, when Terry was about 2 weeks old, we went to Grand River. And I stayed in Grand River till Dad got service. Then we moved on to a little farm. I lived been with the folks for a little bit, and then I moved in a little house. And then I moved in another house. First I lived in 2 rooms. And then I lived in this little house, it used to be the old salt house in Grand River. Right on the alley by behind the grocery store where I lived. Then I moved down on the corner in a little house, and I sold that house. I went back, went to folks again. And then I lived in 2 rooms when your dad came home.
Whose folks? Your folks or Carl's?
Carl's folks, yeah. And then I moved up this little 2-room apartment, a house with 2 rooms, then the front 2 front rooms. And Terry was little and Marvin. And then Dad came home, and then that spring we went out and moved out to the country on that farm. That's where Marvin started school, was out there.
The schoolhouse or up in the hollow?
This is a Grand River.
This is Grand River. This is in Grand River when Marvin and Terry were little. Dad just came home from service and he started farming. And then we lived there for about 1 year, I guess. And then we moved to Sheridan, farmed a year there. And when the weather was so bad and everything, we didn't have very good crops, so we decided we better sell out. While selling was good, so then we moved up to Missouri Valley. Honey Creek, we lived there then. And we lived in Honey Creek for a while. And Dad worked well, he picked corn. We lived back up there in that hollow. And we had to walk up there about 3/4 of a mile up along a creek. Carrying kids up there, a kid on one shoulder and a sack of potatoes on the other. And that's when I was pregnant for Julia. And when we lived up there, that's when Julia was born. You could have thrown a cat through all the cracks in that house, it was so cold. And she made it anyway, she survived. And when we lived up there, Marvin had pneumonia. Went to the hospital, well, that's before Terry was born. Before Julia was born, he had pneumonia. But that's when we lived in that house back up there in Hollow. We lived there for a while, for 1 year, or part of a year, and then we moved up the next year. We started working for Vaughn Cooper there in Honey Creek. We moved up there in the schoolhouse. It was a beautiful place. Julia was about 13 months old when we moved up there.
And I was your prettiest child, right?
Oh yes.
Was she born at a hospital or
She was born in a more like a nursing home. No, it was a nursing home and a place where she had delivered babies up there and kept mothers up there.
Like a midwife?
Midwife, but it was in her home. And I looked at Julia and I went into shock. Not really. Not really.
She always said I was the ugliest child she'd ever seen.
But Julia looked like a little chipmunk. She looked like she had a little knot in each cheek, but she was just as yellow as a pumpkin.
did you have to put her in the sunlight?
No,
Didn't?
I was there for about 7 days, and then we moved back, and then we back home. Then we moved to the schoolhouse after that when she was about 11 months old, I guess she was. And I had a linoleum in this floor, and a linoleum on that floor, and in the back I had a wire with curtains strung up, and a curtain strung up in between the beds. Linoleum on each one of them. Didn't have any water. Had to carry all the water. I had no electricity, no nothing.
No kitchen?
Well, the kitchen was one of the rooms, part of the rooms. But anyway, I lived there and I did the best I could. And then we moved to Modale, where Dad worked for Harrison Crawford, and we lived there. He worked for him for about a year. And then we moved to Council Bluffs. When he got a job, while he was working for him, he got a job on the railroad. And he was working for one of these guys that they bring from overseas, and he couldn't speak any language or anything. He was working on boxcars. And one of them came down and smashed his hand real bad, and so he quit working for them. He didn't work for them anymore. So then we moved to Council Bluffs. We moved up on
Bernard Avenue.
Bernard Avenue. And Dad started driving the bus when we lived up there. We lived up there about, what, about 2 or 3 years, Marvin? Julie was about 2 or 3 years old. Now, we lived up there, that's when Grandma died.
Yeah, Grandma Minion.
Grandma Munyon died when we lived up there. Great, your great-grandmother.
Well, both my grandmothers died when we lived up there.
Well,
My great-grandma died up there, and so did my grandma Minion.
yeah. And we lived up there for about, oh gosh, I don't know how long we did live up there. Must have been
Top 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years we moved up there. Of course, we didn't ever mind that we didn't move very much. Then we moved in town. We bought that house on 4th Avenue, 2508 4th Avenue, and that's where Luann was born. And she was the most precious little thing I ever lived. Yes!
Oh, Gagamag.
She was the spoilest little brat that ever walked on 2 feet.
Yes,
That's the truth.
me.
Dad drove a bus and he worked nights and he couldn't have her cry, so I had to hold her all the time. Oh, she was spoiled. Slept with us and oh man, she was a handful. We lived there for 2 or 3 years.
And I did not like you.
I know it.
Well, we lived there. We moved when we bought that new house on 9th Avenue, and she was only 13 months old.
34, 33.
3433 9th Avenue, and she was 13 months old. And we moved just before Christmas time. We put the Christmas tree in the back of the truck and hauled it from 4th Avenue to 9th Avenue and never lost a bulb or anything off of it in the back of the truck. So that was our first Christmas in the new house. Oh, and then
And while we lived on 4th Avenue, Grandpa Minion died.
no, 4th Avenue. Yeah, he did. 3 years after Grandma died, he died. We lived on 4th Avenue. I don't know if anything else happened there or not.
So you can move.
One in Virginia lived in our backyard for a while in a trailer. Chet and Jerry lived on our upstairs, which was quite a trip for a while. About a year or so they lived up there and upstairs.
Should I tell about the company that she used to get?
No, I don't think
I don't
so.
think I better tell about that. It's kind of, it's not very nice to tell us. They might hear this tape sometime or another. I wouldn't want Chet to know all this.
Great. It's on here now. So go ahead, spill your guts.
Well, where were you born?
I was born in Missouri Valley. I don't know just exactly
What
what
day?
street or what anything else.
What day were you born?
December the 18th, 1918.
December 8th.
8th, 1918.
It's just a small part of Parkinson's coming out.
Yeah, that's right. My father was Jesse Granville Robb, and my mother was Zephyr Mary Derrickson. They lived in Missouri Valley. They were married in Missouri Valley.
What year were they married?
Married in September of 1913. Alfred was born in 1914. Beulah was born in 1916. I was born in 1918. Chet was born in 1920. Juanita was born in 1923. Chester was born in 1928.
When was Robert born?
Robert was born in 1928. We lived up on the hill right by the graveyard.
In that house that I took the picture of?
Uh-huh. A 4-room house. We lived there for 17 years.
When did you graduate from high school?
1937.
37.
Okay.
Missouri Valley.
I did it in 1937 or 38. 1937 I graduated.
Okay, and tell us some stories from your childhood, like your little aunt that made you wear the bloomers.
Oh yes, that little old Aunt Mary. She was a little old thing. She always wore a black dress and a little black bonnet. And we'd go there and on Sundays and visit. And we always wore bloomers. And she'd sit out there on the porch, and us kids, us girls would take our bloomers and pull clear up just high as we could get them. Then we'd run by her, and she'd grab us and pull them clear down below her knees. And around the house we'd go again and come by her again, pull them up and come by her again. She'd grab us. We wore that poor old lady to death. And she was something else.
Tell us about the time that Beulah tried to kill Altalee.
Oh, yeah, Mom was going to Ladies' Aid or something, and Alfie was supposed to take care of her. She always thought she was a big boss anyway, because she was the oldest one. And we had something happen, I don't know, Chet was asking her a question, I don't know just exactly what it was, and she'd been so smart she wouldn't answer him. So Beulah grabbed her around the neck and started choking her. And she choked her so she spit blood, and us kids were yelling and screaming for her to quit. She just kept choking, fighting, she quit. Chet was spitting blood, but she got through it. We used to chase Juanita around with a knife when to cut her mole off. She had a mole on her leg. And we used to chase her around until the butcher knife, because we didn't do these things when Mom was home. Cut her mole off.
What did you always do to Uncle Chet who hated onions?
Oh yes, I forgot all these stories. He'd sit down at the table when he'd come home from school. We'd had something to eat. Mom always made bread. We'd cut it about that thick. Then we'd scoop the center out of it and fill it full of chopped onions. Then we'd put it back together again, put a lot of butter and sugar on it, and give it to him.
Did you rub his plate with onions?
Yeah, we'd take his plate, we'd rub an onion in his plate. Oh, we was ornery. I don't know how Mom. And Mom, when we was all, let's see how old I was. We had scarlet fever. I don't think Robert was born yet. There was 5 of us. We all had scarlet fever. At that time, they quarantined you. And we were quarantined for 42 days in that little 4-room house. 4 or 5 kids. Mom had a nervous breakdown, and which was no wonder. And Dad was staying with the neighbors, and she had a nervous breakdown, so they gave her, the doctor gave her a cot and everything. He slept in our basement. It was a little dirt basement, but he slept there, and every day he'd come home while we'd open up that stairwell on the inside, and all of us would sit around there, and Mom would give him canned milk and bread, which he liked real well. He never took scarlet fever, but all the rest of us had it. We had a chiropractor. He'd come up every day and gave every one of us a treatment. Alfie had it first, and she had it the worst. The rest of us didn't have too bad. 42 days was up while they had to fumigate the house. Happiest day of our life. Well, and we couldn't go anywhere. We had to sit there. We sat on that old high porch that was out there. And all of us sat there and we was throwing a ball across the street to the neighbor kid because we couldn't get anywhere. Oh, it was a happy time. We got outside after 42 days.
And the sewing machine that I have, you told me a story one time about Grandma doing some sewing on that old treadmill sewing machine.
Run the needle through her finger.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to drag the machine to the door and holler to get some help. They had to take the presser foot off to get her finger out. We had these old wash machines. Oh, no, we did. We had an electric machine at that time. She would bend over the machine. She got her tick caught in the wash machine. The ringers. One time, the bunch of men working on the street up there, and they were talking about, did you hear about this gal, this woman that got her tit in the wash machine? Remember, Chet was down here. Yeah, that was my mom. They just tell this little story, about. Now we were so ornery.
Oh, tell us about the cemetery.
Oh yeah,
your cousin?
we had this. Well, we always went to Timber. A bunch of my cousin was there, and it was Aunt Alice and Uncle Will and their kids, and they adopted this girl. I can't think what her name was right now. I forgot it, but they adopted her, and we was all up there in the cemetery. We'd been down the Timber, and we came up, and there was this big building up in the cemetery. And we looked in the window. We'd stand there, and we'd look in the window like this, peeking in, and it had this great big monument.